Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chai Side Chat Season 2. This is an exclusive interdisciplinary talk show featuring interviews with folks about creativity, the arts, healing, personal growth, identity, and mental emotional well-being, among many other things. I am your host, Aishwarya Subramanian, and I'm really excited to introduce my guests for today's episode. So both of my guests are South Asian American DJs, dancers, and music producers who gained fame in their journeys as artists through the collegiate music and dance circles in the US. They have also frequently collaborated and worked together on a variety of creative projects, and I'm looking forward to what I hope will be a fun and exciting conversation about DJ, dancing, and so much more. Please welcome Srihari Sritharan, also known as Dr. Srimix and Sidd Kelam. Hi guys, and welcome to Chai Side Chats. Thank you so much for being here. So just to kind of start, I wanted to have us begin by talking about your journeys into the world of music and dance. So if you could just share a little bit about maybe some of the moments that kind of where you knew that this was one of the artistic passions you wanted to pursue in your life, that would be great.
Okay, sure. So I kind of grew up listening to music for just kind of in the car when I was a kid. My dad was a huge fan of really old school Hindi songs and Tamil songs, like old Muhammad Rafi and Lata Mangeshkar, that kind of stuff. But I kind of grew up in multiple cities because my parents moved around a lot. So I was in San Diego first, and then I was in Wyoming, and then my parents moved back to Monterey and then Ohio, basically all over the place. But there was really no place for me to have like a foundational training in music of any sort. I did kind of think about it for a bit, but not something I focused on. So I spent primarily my childhood working on just arts and crafts and sports and just the usual stuff. Nothing I was really dance focused at all. Then when I went to college, I had a guy who found me at like the freshman activity center and was like, hey, you look like an athletic guy, you should try dance. And I was like, I've never really thought about that. I've never really been a dancer. My mom was like a Bharatanatyam enthusiast, but I was never really into that. I was like, all right, sure, let's go try out for the dance team. And I try out and don't make it because I'm not good at dancing. So then I just was like, all right, well, let's just leave that behind. Let's never pretend like that happened again. A semester later, just across hanging out with my friends and doing, like various cultural shows and stuff, I ended up being better as a dancer and ended up joining my collegiate dance team, which is Brown with Mosh. At that time, we were starting to get into competitions and my captain was like, could you please help us out with creating the background mix that we dance to, because you seem to have a more eclectic / larger variety of songs that you listen to, because back then people were just using Hindi songs, using South Indian songs, that sort of stuff. Not using South Indian songs. So like, please use whatever you can to differentiate us from the typical Bollywood dance team. So I kind of went about it and just downloaded Audacity, which I think is what everyone starts off at. Just basically like the Windows notepad of, audio programs. And then from there, built together something that I thought was like decent. When we started competing, other dance teams who were at the competition, so this was Philly Fest, which is a long dead competition, but a lot of the teams I looked up to came up to me after the show and was like, hey, like that was a really cool choice of songs you had, like could you start helping us out, like we kind of like what you do. And then from there I started working on one team and then two teams and eventually branched out, and now at this point I've worked on way too many. I think we're almost approaching 50 or 60, and that's across a decade. When it comes to live DJing, a lot of my friends were asking me after I graduated, like, hey, like we really like the stuff you created, could you play this at a party? I had no idea how to do it, but I asked some friends who had a leftover turntable and were like, hey, just mess around with this, maybe you'll figure it out. And then that combined with some guidance with some of my close friends, so it's like DJ Ruckus and GTAN, basically got myself slowly up into the live field. These days, what I basically do is help out dance teams when I can, but otherwise I'm just creating mashups for myself. Any sort of cool combo I think of, I'm just like, let's post it. Music doesn't really have to be for the competitive stage. It's such a small niche thing. I really like the ability to create things that people could study to or put in the car for like long drives. So basically any idea I come up with, it's like my escape from what I do on a daily basis, which is right now work at a pharma company. I think a lot of people think I just DJ full time. That'd be fun, but not what I do. So, but yeah, I think that's a fast summary of how I got from point A to right here.
Cool. I guess it's my turn. Yeah, so my story's a little bit different than Shree's, obviously. I started off actually dancing. I started learning Bharatanatyam from my parents when I was 3. And, you know, it's so funny because like I technically didn't start learning from my parents until I was 10 or 9 or 10, something like that. But I used to go to the dance classes with my parents all the time, and I was a very visual learner. So every time I came to a dance class with my mom or something, I would just sit down and watch and, you know, pick up on Aramandi and Adavus and this and that. And then I would start correcting the students. And my mom was like, how do you know about this? And I was like, well, I've been watching. So she was like, okay, well, show me. And then next thing you know, I'm just, you know, dancing the class in the back. Not even, I wasn't really even formally taught when I was younger. So once I turned like 10 or 11, that's when I started actually training in dance. And then while I was training in Bharatanatyam, I was also learning Mridangam, and I was also learning Carnatic music, you know, vocals. So I trained in Mridangam for about 4 to 5 years, I think, give or take. And then same thing with Carnatic music, about 5 to 6 years. So that's where my musical background comes. And then, you know, I just did that as a, you know, being a, you know, an Indian child in America, keeping up with our culture and, you know, just, you know, going to Pata class and doing all the things we're supposed to do to stay in culture. And then my mom has a, you know, really big school here in Atlanta, and, you know, I was teaching with her, and I never really thought of any future within the arts field or anything like that. But then again, when I came into college, I realized there's not many classical teams. If actually there was only 1 or 2 when I first started college, and I didn't even know about it until my junior year. And everybody, you know, all my friends that, you know, learned dance with me, they're always like, hey, you know, why don't you start a team? I was like, I don't know. I was very lazy in college, let's put it that way. But then like enough people, you know, were like, hey, if you start, you know, we're going to join. So we had at least 8 or 9 girls that were like ready to go. So I was like, you know what? All right, let's figure it out. So me and, you know, 2 other people got together and, you know, started Pulse. I think they're GT Pulse now. Originally, GT Pulse was a Georgia State team. That's where I went to college. And over a period of time, we started getting more students joining in from Georgia Tech. So they kind of came in from there. But that I kind of skipped over a whole music side of things. While I was in college, I never actually got into DJing until I was like midway through college. Like I went to my first concert, which was a concert for DJ Tiesto he's a EDM DJ. And that was the first concert I've ever been to. Like I've never been to anything concert related or anything like that. So when I went into there, I experienced the loud music and the subwoofers just hitting me. And I was just like, I want to be up there someday. You know, I want this. And that's where like me DJing really started. Before the idea of mashups and music productions and all of that, I didn't even know that existed. I just wanted to be on stage playing music. So I actually started off live DJing when I got into this whole, you know, this whole thing. So next thing you know, one thing led to another. I saved up some money, bought my first mixer, and I started, you know, DJing house music for, you know, 1-2 years. And then everybody was like, hey, since you DJ, why don't you DJ after parties at like, you know, India Club this and other party that. And I was like, okay, cool. That's a good idea. I was terrible the first 2 years, you know, it was the worst, but, you know, you learn from your experiences and you kind of build up from there. And then after 2 years of live DJing, that's when I started Pulse. You know, I created my first mix for Pulse through Audacity. And then I was also on a Bollywood team at that time. And they were just like, hey, we know you DJ. Would you be able to do the mix? I was like, I've never done this before, but I'm sure I can figure it out. So, you know, we started doing that. And then once we started, you know, competing more with Pulse, you know, I was doing their mix. I didn't even know mashups or anything like that. This was all classical music. So finally, once we started traveling around, I got introduced to DJs like Naeem and you know, other actually he was the only main one that I really got introduced to, and he added me to the DDN Facebook page, and that's where I was like, holy crap, there's this whole new world of DJs and musicians and dancers, and that just like blew my mind. And I was just like, I thought I was killing it, but then I was like, I come into this group, I see so many talented people around me, and that's where I truly started my growth as a I guess you could say DJ or a music producer or whatever it is, right? And then finally, after Georgia State, while this whole process was going on of me trying to figure out, am I a live DJ? Am I making mashups? Or, you know, I joined an audio engineering school, and that's where I kind of picked up my music production side of things. That's where I learned about audio engineering, music production, and then I started working at a recording studio, and just getting my hands on, you know. And while I was doing all of that, I was still creating team mixes. And, you know, one year I reached out to, you know, I was just like, hey, I would love to make team mixes for everybody. And, you know, had a ton of good teams reach out and, you know, started making mixes here and there, and try to use as much of my experience that I've learned on the music production side and audio engineering school to really make these mixes cleaner and better as best as I could be. You know, I'm no Sremix, but, you know, I tried my best to, you know, try to, you know, get as clean as possible with these mixes and give the team
Bro, you
something
are cleaner
new.
than I am.
No,
It's like objectively cleaner than I am.
No.
You're in audio
No,
engineering school, so what happens?
Well, I mean more on the creative side, right? Like, you know, you've got some brilliant ideas that I was like, oh man, that's so brilliant. You know, every time I listen to Shree's mix, I'm just like, damn, that why didn't I think of that? Oh man, that's really cool. You know, and being around Shree like one thing I love about Shree is like, even though he has his strengths and I have my strengths, we're able to pick up from each other so much. And I've learned a ton from him just on the creative side on how to approach mixes and how to approach productions and how to approach, you know, several different things, you know, in the music side of things. And hopefully, you know, you're able to pick up something from me, something useful.
Yeah, absolutely. Like anytime
yeah.
I'm over at your place, or even I send some product through to you, like I learned in such a hacked way because I just learned off of
Right.
Google. I learned off of just experimentation, wasted a lot of years just basically trying to figure out what the correct way to make something sound like it's professional. And like sometimes I come to you with an answer, and you're just like, actually, if you just approach it this way, which I learned in school, or I've done it in like a much faster way, I'm just like, wow, why don't I talk to my friends more? Like, like why do I go to the internet first to try and solve something that's been very well studied? So yeah.
Totally. That's awesome. And I think you guys are kind of already jumping into the other question I had, which is obviously you both have collaborated a lot. You've worked together. So it would be great if you could share more about like the process of what happens when you collaborate, right? Like, how do you come up with an idea? How do you kind of follow it through to the execution? And what does that process generally look like?
Yeah, so for me, it really depends on who I'm collaborating with, right? Like, so if it's for a singer, I'll always say, hey, reach out to, or send me some scratch vocals, you know, record some rough stuff with like a tempo on it, and, you know, just send that over to me, and then I'll start working on the instrumental. And then, and this is more on the music production side, right? It's more about like creating songs from the ground up, not necessarily mashups. When it comes to, so basically when the singer sends the vocals over, you know, I'll work on the full production of it, arrange the whole song, and then I'll send it out back to the singer and be like, hey, record to this, because there's new instrumentation. And, you know, when you have instruments and when you have different elements, new elements, the way the singer sings will change, the groove of her voice will change, you know, and that's more of a ground, like that's more of a, you know, I can feel this track rather than I can hear it, you know. So that's why we re-record the vocals, and that's on the music production side for me. And then when it comes to mashups, I'll set small rules like, hey, I'm only allowed to use this song and I have to mash up 5 songs to this. And I'm that type of, you know, like if you say there's no rules, I will never stop working on one mashup. Like I can work on one thing forever. So I'll try to stick rules and saying, okay, only these 3 songs are available to me. What can I creatively do to make this sound awesome? So I'll go cut up and get as creative as I can. That forces me to do that. Now, if I have a huge library of songs that I have to get into, then it's going to take forever to do this, and this. My work with Sri, it's been more on like, I guess the mixing side and audio engineering side of things. You know, he'll work on some stuff and he'll send it over to me, and then you know, I'll just, you know, put my ear on it, or, you know, well, I don't know. It's been so like, and now that I think about it, like we've only been on a couple of mixtapes together, right? In terms of collaborations.
Yeah, I feel like we've collaborated in a couple of different ways. So
yeah,
I can even just work backwards. So in the most recent example of us collaborating was actually, I made the mixes and some of the choreo, and then Sid was videographer.
yeah.
But that was still extremely useful because having a videographer with music and dance experience is extremely crucial to making choreography videos that kind of maximize impact. And also during the filming process, like it's a lot faster for Sid to just take the video and then tell us we're messy than me come watch the video again and be like, hey guys, let's do it again. Instead, Sid's just like, just do that again. It's a lot faster.
Right.
But then working backwards from there, yeah, like the simplest one would be like, of course, like you put together a mixtape because either a competition or an individual is like, I want to create a 15-minute project that has a bunch of different mashups or songs. Let's reach out to individual DJs who could contribute to that. Either it's Sid himself or myself or someone else entirely. And then from there, we just kind of talk to each other and say, all right, let's like pick a vibe so it's not just all over the place. Let's all pick tropical, let's all pick party tracks or really chill stuff, whatever. And then from there, we just kind of go about creating our own individual tracks. I would say that's probably the lightest form of collaboration because there's like very minimal communication between the two of us. It's just once we set the idea and tone, we just run and contribute. When it comes to something more integrated than that, so I think it's difficult to say that it's very often that DJs come up with an idea together. I think like in the very fundamental root of it, someone usually thinks of some like spark or idea first, even if it's just a concept. And then from there, people can contribute and kind of bounce ideas off of each other, kind of refine it in a certain direction. And then you can start to build down on it. Like one thing I talk about when it comes to like team mixes is you should always think of what your theme or story or plotline is first. And then from there, you can narrow down the number of songs, or else you guys have way too many songs in this universe. But it's also how you come up with mashups that you would have never thought of before, because sometimes certain stories and plot lines lead you to certain songs that you would have like never really listened to on a regular basis and not thought to put on stage. And then from there, you can start to think of various tracks that can go with it. And I think the whole fundamental theory behind mashups is that like as enough years pass on and as long as more and more songs come out, like things start to sound similar. You start to find patterns between things that came out this year and things that came out 10 years ago, 20 years ago in a different language, etc. And so once you have an idea or a concept, like I would like to make a remix of this song, like Sid said, then you can start to be like, oh, let's just like shutter off everything that's not relevant. But now it's starting to think about songs that I had not thought about in a very long time. And then from there, you shoot out the idea like, hey, what do you think about this? And then if they like it, then you can kind of put out a concept and say like, all right, here's a draft, right? And then from there, it's really just execution. Like the collaboration is just whoever wants to be the main head on it is the person putting it all together. One thing we worked together on that was like pretty hilarious is just like Man's Not Hot. Like there's this rapper who came out with a BBC interview where he's just like spitting on this like drill beat basically. And I sent it to Sid being like, yo, you should just replace, because this guy has like a very staccato delivery. I was like, you should just replace that with like some like Konoko like Jadi stuff. And he was like, yeah, that'd be cool, I guess. And so like sent it to him and like went to go shower and like came back and it was like done. Like he was like, all right, it's done, and sent it over. And I was like, that is ridiculous. It was 20 minutes, but you know, that's great. Then the project is over. So like sometimes it's as easy as that. So yeah, I think the fun thing about collaboration is that every project is different and you tend to pull out different people's skills for each project and it's not the same every time. So it's fun.
Yeah, totally. I love that. I think I've heard the Konoko piece that you guys are talking about, and it was really cool. So this is sort of a opposite to collaboration. And I think Sri, you spoke to this a little bit when you were sharing about your journey through music. But what is something like artistically, it could be music, dance, or to something totally different, but what is something that you both do just for yourself? I mean, obviously creating mixes, creating mashups that you share or that you're doing for other teams is like products that you're putting out there, so to speak, right? So I think as artists, what I've noticed for myself and also from what I've heard in conversations with other artists is like, I think it's really important to keep that passion and that fire going within yourself too, to a certain extent, because I think it can get really challenging when you're pulled in so many different directions and you start to kind of lose yourself a little bit. So I'm curious, kind of, what do you do to sort of ground yourself artistically or kind of come back to what it is that you actually love about music or dance or any art modality, really?
Maybe one way I can think of grounding myself is, I think I'm a little bit unusual in the sense that a lot of people can just do like a science or business related job all day and be totally fine with it. And then like other people can also do music or the arts all day and be completely fine. I find myself having to like kind of balance half and half just in my daily life. It's just like how I am as a person. probably a little bit unfortunate because it'd be nice if I could just do music all day because I'd be just cranking out tracks and I'd be probably a lot more successful than I am, but you can only do what you're handed, right? So I think it's kind of cool for me to like reset sometimes by just doing the complete opposite thing. And so sometimes when I'm just way too exhausted from making music all day and I'm just like, you know what, I'm just not getting any inspiration. Sometimes I take a break and go to something completely different on the opposite side, like go work on something analytical or just go watch movies, something that just is more about like absorbing than it is about like putting something out. And then after a while, I start to find myself thinking of ideas again. Sometimes even just as much as stopping sitting in front of a computer, just like exercising for like a week straight. It's just like, all right, let's just like reset the body. Like you've been sitting in one place for too long, having 10 cups of coffee a day, like go do something else, right? But yeah, I think that probably would be what it is for me.
Yeah. So for me, the way I handle burnout, and I've been dealing with a lot of it from, the past 3 years. One thing I did was like when pandemic hit, I really burnt out and I noticed like all my music was starting to sound the same. And, I just didn't like that. I wasn't growing as a musician. So I just stopped working on music for a whole year. And I just totally didn't do anything music related. And I switched over to cinematography. So, that was going really well. And that kind of got me through pandemic financially because I'm a full-time creative, right? So I have to keep doing something creative to, pay the bills and all that stuff. So I did that. And then usually when I do start working, unfortunately, my issue is like when I start working on a project, I can't stop. I don't know how to. Because if I stop, I get scared that my ideas will go away. So I just keep going hardcore. Like one time, the longest session I've had was 16 hours where I just got up to use the restroom, I had snacks and stuff, but I produced a whole song out in 16 hours straight. And I just could not stop working on it. So when sessions like that happen, I know health is very important, right? So what I'll do is I will make sure, like luckily I live in Atlanta and we have a lot of cool, like I'm a very outdoorsy person. Like if I'm not in the studio, I really like spending time outside in nature. So I'll go hiking, hardcore hiking, like climb a bunch of stuff, go look at the rivers and, listen to music while I'm doing it. And then if I even don't want to listen to any music, I'll just like, sometimes like it gets so chaotic that I just turn off everything and I just am quiet, just quiet in the car, quiet outside, enjoy the, nature sounds and all that stuff. So that's something that helps me a ton. And then, creatively speaking, like if I want to take a break from music, right, and I feel like I'm tired of it, I have a playlist of songs that I first used to listen to that always have a special place in my heart that I go back and listen to. That it's just like revisiting the idea of why are we here in the first place? Why did you get into this? So I have that playlist and I have like a set of 5 or 6 songs that I go to every time. And that's just like like going to a gas station and refueling your car. That's like refueling my soul, just going back and listening to these set of songs. And I'm just like, okay, I get it. Now we're here. And then, because sometimes as you're working through, like when you're working on your dreams or working through anything, right, you tend to lose track because you've gone so deep into a certain direction that you're like, why are we here? What are we doing? And you get so lost. So, it's a good job to kind of remind yourself, like, why are we here in the first place? So I tend to, lately, that's been happening a lot. So I've been trying to find a way to find a routine to kind of make sure weekly once I just go do that, or to have a certain set of things that allow me to reset my brain and then come back into, whatever safe space that I'm in.
It reminds me of something actually. It's extremely similar process because I was in grad school at the same time while I was working on all this music stuff. And it's the exact same issue that people run into, which is that you drill down so deep into the details that you forget why you're there. And I think it's the exact same process, just to zoom out and remember like why you're doing what you do, knowing that the end product is going to benefit lives, whether it's music, whether it's medicine, whether it's whatever. And just kind of remembering that like, as much as you can just sit in one place and feel like you're spinning in circles, like the end result, as long as you keep yourself grounded, is going to be very largely positive. So
yeah, I love what both of you shared. And I think the phrase that is standing out to me, Sid, what you said is like refueling your soul. I love that. That's such a cool way of conceptualizing it. And it's, I think, really necessary for a lot of artists because like you said, burnout is really real for a lot of people. So yeah. So we're going to move into our experiential activity for today, which is like I'm calling it live mashup antakshari sort of inspired game. So basically what we're going to do is I have a beat that I'm going to play, which is actually the basic beat from the Chai Side Chats theme intro that is you might have heard in the beginning of our episode. It comes at the beginning of every episode that I air. So we're just going to use the basic beat from that and kind of play with stringing songs together that are kind of, you know, based on that beat. And I would say, let's keep that as our like basic rule. And then bonus points if there is like melodic connections between the songs, or if you are able to follow the rules of Antakshari where you are using the last syllable or kind of letter. But I think just, yeah, basic beat is like the rule that we're sticking with. So yeah, how does that sound to both of you?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
We will try to overcome the possible network lag that comes with this. Let's see what happens.
True. I did not think about that, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, I'm gonna play the beat, and then whoever has a song idea, just jump in.
I feel like this is either like medicine inspired Indian or like Bhangra.
Yeah.
Like Mukabala is like Mukala Lela.
Yeah, there's an Ariana Grande song that goes with it. Because you like Taki Taki could go with this as well.
Pretty fast, but you could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything.
Taki Taki Rumba. And you could like cut it up.
Be my chalo.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I think there's a lot of things you can do. It's an old Tiger style song. I'm trying to think what else.
So one thing you can also note is like the drums are in a certain key. So finding songs in that key will definitely help really well too to match.
Oh woman, the waited time, girl, I wanna be taking you home. Ah, na, na.
Da, 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 da. Meet me at the hotel room.
Yeah.
Da, da, da. It's gonna turn into after party.
Basically, if you speed it up like any Bollywood song works, yeah. Maybe by naturally,
Yeah.
or even high heel te
Right.
Yeah.
And then if you wanted to go crazy, you could turn like a slower song into a fast song to, like, you know, like Sheila Ki Giovanni would be really cool too.
Oh yeah.
Like just really fast paced, you know. You have that, and then
I'm like trying to think of Tamil songs that would go with this, and I'm struggling.
Halka Giovanni also.
Yeah. Yep. And then I'm trying to think of like good Telugu songs that might go with it. The thing is, like with South Indian music,
The speed is a kind of a dead zone for a Southern
Right.
song. It's kind of hard,
Yeah.
but there are some that are still out there. Bommali, Bommali.
Gali Baluga, Ogula Bali, Yana Mainadi, Nagundi Kitagli. Yep. Yep. That's all I got.
That was cool though. I'm
Yeah,
glad. Thank
fun.
you for humoring me with this activity.
The
Thank
fun
you
thing is
for-
honestly, this is not that different from what you would do for like a live DJ set, which is that once you have a song going, you just are like, it's like a kind of a tree, right? You reach some point, you look at what the crowd is responding to, and you're like, okay, given that the speed is here, and given that the crowd is, let's say, half Indian, or they're all Indian Americans, you're like, okay, I have like 6 songs I can choose from, right? And they're all kind of work. Let's pick one of them, and then you're at the same point again. It's like, do you go this way? Do you go this way? That way? It's the exact same thing. Do you play 3 consecutive Indian songs? Do you play like 2 Hindi songs and then a Pitbull song? But yeah, it's basically the same thing that we did just now. It's like exactly what we do at a party. And I think that's part of the fun of it. So
Yeah, that's cool.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of like spontaneity involved too, because you sort of have to think on your feet for what songs will go together, right? So
Right.
cool.
that's fun.
Awesome. Well, that brings us to the end of our episode. I just wanted to thank you both so much for being here and for sharing about your process of working together, of being in this world of music and dance and all things that are creative. And yeah, all the best with whatever work you guys have coming up. I'll drop more information about
Cool.
like your social media handles and things in the
Sure.
description so people can check out your stuff. Thank you so
Perfect.
much for being here.
We'll make
All
more
right,
stuff
thanks
together.
so
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Hello, viewers. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Chai Side Chats with Sri and Sid and our fun experiential activity at the end. Please do like, share, and subscribe to the Creativity Awakening YouTube channel for regular updates on our videos. If you'd like to get more exclusive sneak peeks into the episodes and creative process here at Chai Side Chats, you can follow our social media pages linked in the description below. Stay tuned, the next episode of Chai Side Chats is coming soon.